Sports Professor Rick Horrow, and welcome to a special edition of Beyond the Scoreboard, the show that goes way beyond the trillion-dollar business of sports, deal-making, marketing, business, law, a whole host of stuff, everything other than the scores. You want the background? You want the behind the scenes? You got it. If you want all of the items of 15 to watch every week, we include 5 big philanthropic issues and 5 sports tech issues. Take a look at NBC Washington at Rick Horrow, rickhorrow.com. Join us on our Apple Podcast, Google Play, Audio Boom, Stitcher, iTunes, anywhere. We got a special treat for you this week because we have basically the best of at the beginning of the football season from some of our interviews with some of the highest ranking people in sports, not only people who are kind of relevant as the commissioners of their respective leagues, but also tie-ins to some special people. So without further ado, NFL, by the way, getting the top billing everywhere. Packers, Bears season opener right here, and 37 corporate sponsors activating around the NFL in support of 50 brands. An increase of 35 additional spots to 64 themed TV spots celebrating the NFL's 100th anniversary. Verizon relies on the power of the NFL to help with its 5G rollout, activations in 12 stadiums. New sponsor Lowe's has 2 national ads and will sell NFL licensed products in-store and online. Gatorade, the league's oldest corporate sponsor, has Todd Gurley and J.J. Watt in spots. And the sponsors will unveil more than 109 digital spots, and TV and digital ads will employ more than 100 active and retired NFL players. Clearly important. But it's not just here. It's across the pond. 55% increase in tickets, not only because we have more games than ever before, 4 in London split between the Wembley and Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but Mexico, for example.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
As well as other places, the NFL continues to grow, and the annual NFL preview by StubHub shows the league sales coming from outside the U.S. increased by 19% since the start of last season. Fans from 54 countries using the ticketing platform to buy tickets. So it's not just domestic, but it's also international. And we begin by talking about something that's gripped the headlines over the past week. The unexpected, some would say shocking, retirement of former Indianapolis Colts quarterback Andrew Luck. I'm going to tell you that I've had some very specific relationships with Andrew and his father Oliver. His father's contributed to our Sport Business Handbook, and in 2011 we had the honor of interviewing Heisman runner-up Andrew Luck, the Maxwell Award winner, first-team All-American, academic All-American, and the projected first pick of the draft, which he was by the Colts later on that year. As you listen to the snippets of the interview from my show Sportfolio on Bloomberg, thanks to Bloomberg for giving us the opportunity to hear this perspective, you may not be surprised or shocked if you hear Andrew Luck. He's a Renaissance man. He understands architecture, business, and it's not surprising that no matter what his reasons are, his body and his mind come first. So let's start this special edition by giving you the snippets of 8 years ago, Andrew Luck.
Indeed, even Peyton Manning doesn't hold a degree in architectural design from Stanford Engineering, but Andrew's academic passions and athletic interests developed hand in hand.
I love stadiums and arenas and, and baseball parks and coliseums, or what name you. I think that's sort of why I got interested in architecture, was as a kid, going around with my father who worked for NFL Europe to all these great, stadiums in Europe, whether it was, the Allianz Arena in Munich or, the great Manchester United, Old Trafford, all those neat stadiums.
Weigh in on kind of the concept of building a stadium today. It's important you reach fans and amenities, but you also have as many events as possible.
Well, I think it has to be a widespread arc when you're building a stadium. You have to have the ability to make it a basketball arena and maybe cut it in half, and sight lines are so important. You have to, I think, cater to a lot of people, and you don't want to build a generic run-of-the-mill stadium. Everybody seems to want the new next best thing.
Nothing is generic or run-of-the-mill for Andrew the student. His intellectual curiosity extends to the business he's about to enter.
George Foster and Roger Noll, great professors at the GSB, the Stanford Graduate School of Business. They open up a couple spots in their sports management and sports business classes for some of the football guys. So I'm definitely interested in taking one of their classes and learning about it. And I've heard from a lot of guys, guys my age that have taken it in the years past, and they've learned a lot and very interesting. Brendan brings a lot of great guys in. I feel very blessed to be in the situation I am now. It's a great opportunity, and I'm not going to complain about something, because hopefully I just want to be paid to play football, and that'd be enough for me.
Andrew Luck will certainly be picked to play football, and very likely with the first selection in the draft, and he's well positioned to parlay that success into endorsement deals and business opportunities. And as you might imagine, the Lucks do have a strategy for that. Andrew Luck has marketers as well as scouts bullish on his prospects at the professional level. Part of his appeal, he's genuinely determined to stay genuine. What is the IPO that is Andrew Luck? What's the brand look like? How would you sell yourself?
Oh, I don't know. As an NCAA student athlete, I stay away from from trying to sell myself or make money on myself.
He's proven that already. Luck could have turned professional a year ago, but chose to return to Stanford University for his senior season. He readily admits it may not have been the best business decision.
It was more of an emotional decision. And to be honest, it wasn't too hard to make it. I felt very comfortable coming back. I wanted to sort of prolong having to grow up for another year. I was enjoying college, enjoying my teammates, and wanted to finish up and get the degree. So it was more of an emotional decision.
And you had 4 million people giving you advice, I'm sure, on what to do. But what was the best bit of advice you actually got about that decision?
Probably from my dad. He said, to be honest, do what you want to do. As simple as that. And do what you're not going to lose sleep over, and that's what I did.
So what do you want the brand to stand for?
What do I want the brand to stand for? Just try a positive image, do the right thing, stay out of trouble, and then stay out of the negative, sort of headlines. I'm not perfect by any means. I go out and I do some stupid things every now and then, with my friends, and it's almost a click away from a phone camera for you be on the internet, doing something stupid forever, I guess.
If Andrew Luck fulfills his athletic potential and keeps his image clean, his earning power will be staggering. Quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning have each made over $100 million in salary and endorsements in their playing careers. And as the example of Johnny Unitas shows, a quarterback's brand value can endure for decades. But Luck may have advantages even those icons didn't have.
Going to school in Silicon Valley, it's great. I've been to talks for all these great entrepreneurs, great, venture capitalists, and they're all around, the area. So listening to them talk, and I'm sure I'll be able to go back once I start playing, on the next level and get some great advice from guys there.
So if Andrew Luck were an IPO, would he be an unqualified buy?
Well, now let's get to it. We have a best of special with a commissioner perspective. First, the commissioner of the XFL, because of the tie-in to his son. Oliver Luck has been the athletic director at West Virginia. He was the head of the World League of American Football, certainly important as you see how international the NFL has been with the NCAA, been the Houston Dynamos, and now he's the president of the XFL. So let's give you the best of with Oliver Luck.
We have the commissioner that presides over all of football with us today. Incredibly proud, a long and illustrious career. It's Oliver Luck. Oliver Luck, the commissioner of the XFL, and I'm certainly not cynical about it. Don't mean to minimize it. You take a look at some of the information, I'm serious about it. This is a league that's on the way to success. largely because of Oliver's even temperament, certainly need capital, but his bridge building skills as well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. The morning of June 4th, June 5, whatever it is, 2018, clearly life-changing for you for a lot of reasons. Vince and you had a lot of conversations before that, but that was your announcement. So give me your mindset as to why you did it and how you feel now.
Sure. So I was working at the NCAA, as you know, the EVP of Regulatory Affairs, basically a number two to Mark Hammer, whom I really appreciate. He has a hard job. It's tough running college athletics. And I was aware that Vince had made an announcement last January that the league was going to be relaunched, but I didn't really pay much attention to it, quite honestly. So one of his guys reached out and said, "Hey, would you take a meeting with Vince?" And I said, "Sure." I didn't know him, I had never met him. I was sort of impressed with his entrepreneurial bent in building up WWE into a, publicly traded billion-dollar-a-year company. It's remarkable.
So he reached out to you?
He reached out to me out of thin air, and I ran NFL Europe, so it's a pretty select group, that's run professional football leagues and started them from scratch, right? So anyway, I sat with him, and over the course of a couple of days, and I wanted to really understand why he wanted to do this, and would he do it, as the Brits would say, in a proper fashion, right? Because the first time around wasn't good. Football wasn't good. It was gimmicky, and I wouldn't want to be part of a bad football league with lots of gimmicks. I don't think the American public likes gimmicks, right? Particularly when it comes to something important like football.
Right.
So, he convinced me that he was going to, hire somebody that knew football and could build that league the way it should be built. And everything I've experienced in the last 6-7 months as I've been on board has been just that. He's given me all the rope I need, as they say, to hang myself.
Presumption of, and you're not, presumption of the he-hate days, and now you have until early 2020 to prove that wrong in 8 cities. His comment, or yours, about reimagining football, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so what he wants is a up-tempo game, right? Fewer stoppages, fewer breaks, right? The college and pro balls sometimes can go on forever, right?
Well, there's a good reason. They're commercials.
Well, that's true. That's true. But think of all the split screen that's now taking place, right? So up-tempo game. He wants to be innovative in what we do, right? So shorter breaks, so and get it all done in 3 hours. I remember back in the old days, in the 1970s or the 80s or the 90s, when games really got done under 3 hours. Right. So I think
we're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
The talent pool of players and coaches is pretty deep, pretty rich, pretty broad, and then we can find guys that are able to deliver on that promise, right? So we've got very soon we'll be announcing our broadcast partners. We have 4 games a weekend, right? Eight teams, 4 games a weekend. All those games will be broadcast, every last one, either terrestrially or fully distributed cable. So we're gonna have
multiple partners.
We're gonna have some great broadcast deals. We're not far from naming our head coaches, right? I've got 4 signed and 4 more to come because I'm acting like the owner of each one of these teams, right? Because Vince owns them,
and it's not as if you're not experienced doing it.
Yeah, I hired coaches over in Europe, multiple times, right, with our league. So it's coming together. We have the gift of time. I wouldn't have taken this job, Rick. If Vince said you got 3 months and we got to play, I'd said no, don't want it. You need time. You need time in any startup.
Part of it, any startup. But part of it is the nuts and bolts of the widgets and everything you need to stadium. And part of it is the reimagining.
That's right. So we've taken all these ideas. We have a different kickoff we're looking at. We have a different punt we're looking at. We're looking at a 25-second clock versus the 40-second clock. We're looking at a different overtime, right? We're looking at having an 8th referee. Yeah. What a novel idea, that
it's a replay.
Yeah, exactly. So all that stuff, but you have to test it as well, And so we're testing it already with junior colleges. Back in December of this past year, we're working with the Spring League. Might be familiar to you. The New York Football League. Right. These are all, we basically borrow these leagues' players for 3 or 4 days and run 55 of our new kickoffs to make sure we've got it right, and punts and all that kind of stuff. I've always found it interesting. My dad was a chemical engineer and he used to preach about the importance of R&D to DuPont, where he worked. Think about the NFL, $14-15 billion a year company. There's not much R&D going on, right? Or college football, right? Very popular, but not much R&D going. So we want to make sure we test these things as best we can before we, etch them in our rule book.
Right. It's like the other form would say, what gives you the reason? You've had the presumption of failure. Tell us why this is.
Sure. It's really just a couple things. Capital, money matters, right? Any startup, and Vince is putting a minimum of $500 million behind this venture. Time, which we have, and the ability to plan. Very powerful partners, which we'll be announcing very soon. And I think the other thing is this: disciplined decision making. So, think about the USFL. I remember going to Houston Gambler games. The place was rocking, right? The old Astrodome. Jerry Argovitz, if they had stayed in the spring, had disciplined decision making, that would be a very valuable property today. But they didn't. Right? They made.
Talk about Donald Trump or
no, we should. But they moved to the fall. That was a bad decision. Lack of decision making discipline. But that's the vision we have, right? So you build. But Lamar Hunt was very interested in NFL Europe when I was running the league. Right. And Lamar used to say to me, Oliver, you always have to remember who you are, but more importantly, who you're not. So we have to remember who we're not. We're not the National Football League and never will be, right? But we can be the XFL and build our league in the spring, mind our own business, if you will, have good relations with everybody, right, in the football world, because I think it's all important. But I think we can build up brands that people kind of like and watch and follow.
So what about MLS? And then
I'm a huge fan of what Don Garber has done. If you go back and look at where they were when he took that job in 2000 maybe, where they are today, it's incredible. The value of the franchises, the quality of the league. It's got ways to go still. Still's got to figure out how to break that TV question, right? It's not destination viewing for the vast majority of people, and that's a challenge. NFL is, and XFL hopes to be destination viewing, but MLS has to kind of increase the opportunity for the TV broadcast and then expand their audience.
What does it feel like when people stop you on the street and say, how's Andrew? Can you get me to Andrew?
No, they say, tell Andrew I got him on my fantasy team, so he needs to throw a bunch. I say, do you think he cares about that? I really. That's the question. Right. That's the question I get. Yeah, I said, hey, I'm great. Good job, but I'm not going to.
Ladies and gentlemen, in that context, and by the way, he is one of our contributors to the Sport Business Handbook. You hear a lot more about it. Key people in the industry, Paul Tagliabue's in there, Steve Russ in there, and on and on and on. So it's as good as it gets. Andrew Luck, Oliver Luck, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
I appreciate it.
You bet. My pleasure.
Rick Horrow, speak with you soon.
Our next commissioner is a good buddy. He's the commissioner of the National Lacrosse League, Nick Sakevich. But he's also been the author and deal maker for stadiums in Harrison, New Jersey, and Chester, Pennsylvania. He was the MLS guy for the Red Bulls and for the Philadelphia Union. But he's now taken the NLL to an entirely different level. Let's get his perspective. Nick Sakevich.
Nick Sakevich, one of the foremost entrepreneurs of our generation. How's that for an intro?
Oh, wow, Rick. That was beautiful. Thank you. I'm humbled by that.
Not the first time you'll be humbled by anything I say, and certainly not the last. So
for sure. I look forward to it.
Well, listen, you can, and you deserve it, because you're one of the guys that has crossed over into two major sports. So, Nick Sakevich, the person, grew up in American soccer, broadly defined, then went to France. So a little bit of your snapshot of your stellar playing career.
Not stellar at all. Born at the wrong time. Grew up playing in the northern part of New Jersey and all the ethnic leagues. Had some success at the professional level, but had a very, very short career. It just wasn't fashionable to play soccer in the 80s in the U.S. I tried my skills in Europe, but that didn't work out. I did meet my wife though in Portugal. My last.
You're also a hero. You're also a hero in northern France, right? Aren't you a hero in northern France? Didn't you play there for like a week?
Hero? No, not at all. I was a third string goalkeeper trying to make it in a very, very competitive environment. But you know what? I got a beautiful wife out of my soccer career, and I'm very thankful for that.
That's probably the more important thing of all of that. But the interesting career, and we crossed paths getting the Red Bull Stadium done in Harrison, and then parlaying that knowledge for you into building the Philadelphia Union and the whole world of the MLS. Talk a little bit about that.
No, just a great run of 21 years. Started as one of the founding executives of the league back in the L.A. office of the league office in 1995, and helped launch the league, and then I ran a couple of teams in Tampa and New York, and then you and I met in that incredibly difficult project called Red Bull Arena. But I'm very proud to say we did a great job there, Rick.
Yes,
that was a lot of fun. Great stories that roll up under the title of "You Can't Make This Stuff Up," but we got that building done, and then I took everything you taught me, and I went to Philadelphia and really built a beautiful building right on the river of the Delaware River in Chester, Pennsylvania, and I'm really proud of that. We had a great 21-year run, and now I'm in another sport, trying to do it all over again.
Well, but the doing it all over again is, different sport, different venue, maybe different rules, different game, same mentality, same entrepreneurial skill. Without talking yet about the duties of the Commissioner of the National Lacrosse League, what's business skills, this is a business show, you think you kind of learned and possessed that made this transition to running a different kind of league possible?
Yeah, the business skills are very similar. Both opportunities. And by the way, I never thought I'd get another once in a lifetime opportunity. And lo and behold, the National Lacrosse League owners came along and presented one to me. So I'm very fortunate in that regard. But the business acumen in building, whether it's soccer league, soccer teams in a country at a time when no one really cared about the sport or wanted to care about the sport, and now in lacrosse, very much the same. I'm taking into the National Lacrosse League a 5-year strategic plan, which I spent the last 100 days developing and diving into, and that's what we needed in Major League Soccer. And when we were developing the league and launching the league and building each of the teams, you've got to have a strategic plan. And this one was, with the National Lacrosse League, was very interesting because we have so much to accomplish with the league. I needed to step back and really take a look at the compulsory things that we needed to do to really build the foundation of the league going forward. So the 5-year strategic plan is built on 5 key pillars for the league. Those being, we've got to build a digital platform, we've got to focus on expansion and bring more teams in the league and bring more strategic thinkers and wealthy sports owners to the table to help us grow the league. There's a grassroots component, there's a team services component, and then there's a commercial NLL 2.0 commercial sponsorship platform and a long-term broadcast strategy. And those are the things that really we started Major League Soccer with many years ago, 21 plus years ago. But it's that strategic planning, the discipline to stick to the strategic plan, and then the people. It's all about the people, getting really good, smart, strategic, thoughtful, experienced sports people to help build a professional league or an individual team. But I'm in the process now of looking for really good men and women to help me build this league.
Well, and the interesting thing about all of this is that Nick Sakevich, by the way, commissioner of the National Lacrosse League, capital C, not just some dump on the highway. This guy is the real thing. The bottom line of all of this is you could fill in the blanks and you could talk about a strategic plan, and I guess you could argue that Garber years ago and Pete Rozelle before that, market, well-heeled owners, long-term broadcast strategy, corporate partners. It's essentially the same kind of conceptual road map for.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor.
Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow, the sports professor. We're going to rewind the show a little bit and pick up from there. Here's Rick Horrow.
Individual team, but I'm in the process now of looking for really good men and women to help me build this league.
Well, and the interesting thing about all of this is that Nick Sakevich, by the way, commissioner of the National Lacrosse League, capital C, not just some dump on the highway. This guy is the real thing. The bottom line of all of this is you could fill in the blanks and you could talk about a strategic plan, and I guess you could argue that Garber years ago and Pete Rozelle before that, market, well-heeled owners, long-term broadcast strategy, corporate partners. It's essentially the same kind of conceptual road map for success as it is in all other sports, isn't it?
It really is, and roadmap is exactly what it is. You can't get to where you want to go unless you have a map or a plan on how to get there, and I'm a big believer in that. And that doesn't mean that plan is carved in concrete. It in fact, the opposite. You lay out that plan and you develop it and you tweak it and you polish it along the way. But you've got to have a long-term strategic plan. And also the other thing I learned in Major League Soccer is we did it in chunks there. So it wasn't a 20-year plan or it wasn't a 30-year plan. That's not realistic. But we did it in segments, and we're going to do the same thing in the National Lacrosse League. So we have a 5-year plan. Now, that 5-year plan in year 2 or 3 might get accelerated, and then another 5-year plan comes along, and you build it. Because in sports, the sports business model is also part analytical and business acumen, but it's also socioeconomic. You've got a growing sport that lots of kids are playing, but you've got to nurture those kids because your market's growing. Sports like baseball and football, 100+ years old. There's multiple generations sitting in the stands and watching on TV. In soccer and now lacrosse, we didn't have multiple generations, and we have to. But we have a good thing, which is lots of kids playing the game. So part of our strategy, and you'll notice one of the core tenets of the strategy is grassroots. We've got to be in front of the fans of the future because it's socioeconomic. Mom and dad take the kids grow up, the kids become mom and dad, they take the kids, and the parents become the grandparents. And it's very much a cycle like that, and you've got to go through 10 or 20 years of a cycle to build a fan base.
I know you real well, and one of those things that you're required in that plan is something that very hard for type A's to possess, certainly you, and that's patience. So how do you deal with the fact that the success of this can be measured in relatively small increments, but the ultimate success is years and years away?
Yeah, well, that's patience and balanced discipline is really important in this role. And I'm 10 years older than when we worked together back in the day in the New York area. So I've learned that patience is a virtue. But I think deep down, I want things to happen quicker. So you just got to find the balance between patience and thoughtfulness and not knee-jerk decisions. And I've definitely learned that over the years. There's no question I'm much more wiser in my 50s than I was in my 30s.
Well, you were pretty wise in your 30s, and now that you're 55, I feel really good because, I'm up there too, and then I looked at your bio, and that's wonderful that you now get the AARP card too as well, right? Does that bother you?
Not at all. Not at all. That's a great demographic, in fact.
Yeah, well, they're supposed to be the ones.
55 is the new 45.
Yeah, well, A, and B, they're the ones supposed to have all the money. So, God bless us all. Here is my other question, too. Does it frustrate you, bother you, always talk about a sign of really interesting upside opportunity, that there are still some people that don't take niche sports seriously, broadly defined? I don't mean it necessarily NLL, but I mean it necessarily everything except the Big Four.
Bother me? No. I'm glad it's there though, because it's the fuel that feeds the fire. I don't know if you remember, Rick, but years and years ago they said we couldn't build a stadium in New York. And we built the stadium in New York, and then when I came to Philadelphia, everybody rolled their eyes and said, "You're going to build what, where, and play what in it?" And I built a beautiful stadium, and it packs the house every game. So I love when people say you can't do something, because that's just the fuel that feeds the fire, and you got to have that. You got to embrace that if you're doing this kind of stuff.
Are your owners patient? Do they follow your business plan? Do they understand what this is going to take?
Well, of course not. Owners shouldn't be patient, and I'm like an owner, so I always go into a project acting and feeling and thinking like an owner. And you shouldn't be patient, but you also have to know and understand, and it's my job to educate our ownership as to why things take certain timelines and why we need to start with the fundamentals and grow them over time. Nothing ever works out the way you planned, right? So you've got a contingency plan, but it's all about being educating the constituencies, which include owners, include sponsors, broadcast partners, and fans. And that's, I believe, the role of the commissioner is to really take that leadership position and try to educate everyone and bring everyone into the mix in a collaborative way to share the information and make good decisions.
A couple more. Nick Sakevich, Commissioner, National Lacrosse League. Without getting specific as to each one, you got Bettman, you got Rob Manfred, new to the job. Gary Bettman is now the oldest tenured commissioner, which I remind him all the time. We've got Roger and now Adam Silver, also new to the job. What common traits, as you assess those four and their successes and maybe negatives, what are the common traits that you see that you would like to emulate?
Well, listen, I know Adam well. Have a huge amount of respect for him. Obviously, I know Don Garber well. We worked together and toiled for many years building Major League Soccer. I think the thing that I love most about those guys that I know is that they really try to step back and be thoughtful when they make their decisions, and not just make knee-jerk reactions or emotions. Our business is inherently emotional, and having spent most of my career on the team side, I know the emotions that owners or presidents or GMs go through. But what I admire most about all those guys and the job that they have done is that they have a great ability to step back, assess, look at all sides, and really attempt to make a fair and balanced decision. And stepping into this role day one, I promised myself that I would try to adhere to that mantra and philosophy and just try to make, because every decision is not popular, right? You got to make very difficult ones and sometimes unpopular decisions, but I always want to make sure we take the time to think about it, to be thoughtful, to be strategic, consider the effect on the league, the effect on the individual teams, if those are individual teams that are involved in that decision, and just be thoughtful and strategic about it. I think that's really, really important. And frankly, that can be said for any role of a business leader, whether it's a CEO, a president, an owner of a small business, or commissioner of a league.
Where's the NLL in 10 years?
The NLL in 10 years, that's a long time, but it's also not a long time. That's 2 5-year strategic plans from now, and I really feel good about our product. The product is insanely good, Rick. I was blown away by the quality of it and the juxtaposition of strength and power and hard hitting with the finesse. It's kind of like the best pieces of hockey and the best pieces of basketball put together. So our product quality is so good, and the entertainment value is so good. And obviously, I'm the commissioner, so I'm biased in saying that. But actually, I'm a soccer guy that didn't know much about lacrosse at all, and I've just fallen in love with this game. It's powerful. It's terrific. Our athletes are amazing. So I can really envision this league being a 20-team league in 10 years, and being one of the major, if you acquiesce the 5th spot to MLS today, I think we'll be a very, very solid, strong number 6, maybe number 5. We'll be well on our way to having a strong, presence on linear and digital TV, and we'll be a leader in the professional sports world, and not a niche sport, not a minor league sport, but a major one.
Realistic, intelligent, great businessman, moderate athlete, and good to call a friend. How's that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Nick Sakevich, talk to you soon. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thanks, Rick.
Well, the NFL, clearly one of the fastest growing leagues, but you would make the argument that the NBA is right up there. Franchise values nearly $3 billion, certainly with the recent sale of the New Jersey Nets to Joe Tsai, and the initial sale right after the beginning of the tenure of Adam Silver of the Clippers to Donald Sterling. But one of the things that's really happening over time is the consistent and strident increase in value domestically and locally of the NBA. Staff has a significant reason for that, and Mark Tatum, a marketing guy, an NBA guy, an international guy, one of the big reasons for that. Here's Mark Tatum.
We start this podcast telecast with a very unique individual. Sorry about the long introduction.
No problem.
Mark Tatum, Deputy Commissioner of the NBA, storied career, very important in the NBA. NBA couldn't do without him. How's that?
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that introduction.
Appreciate it. I set the stage for this finals, but give me a 30-second elevator speech about the health of the NBA.
The health of the NBA has never been better. Here we have the 2 best teams in the NBA competing for a world championship between the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James, multiple-time MVP, one of the best players to ever play the game, versus these Golden State Warriors, the defending champions here in the Bay Area. Steph Curry, the reigning MVP, and so it's just a terrific matchup that fans around the world are excited about.
So around the world, we'll have an interesting broadcaster in a couple of minutes. But 215 countries, 47 languages.
Yes.
Where are you not now that you want to go?
We are everywhere in the world that we want to be, quite frankly. In 215 countries and territories, we have 100 players in our league who started on NBA rosters this year. And in this finals alone, there are 9 international players from 5 different countries. So, again, the international community is well represented in this finals and in the NBA.
Mark Tatum, Deputy Commissioner, NBA. You know what I find interesting, too, is you're always going to be prolific with corporate sponsorships. There's always the Coke-Pepsi deal. That came out well for you. There's always other deals, AB. That came out well for you. But to find Tissot as the official timer of the NBA and getting $200 million for that, that's pretty cool.
Well, I think the thing that's so great about Tissot is that what we did is we came up with an idea together with them, and it was a business solution for our shot clocks. And so they have this expertise when it comes to timing and Swiss timing, and so we integrated them into our shot clock. They're redoing our entire timing system, and so it was a true win-win relationship from an end.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
Perspective and from a marketing, branding, business perspective with Tissot.
That is brilliant. Did Mark Tatum think of that? David Stern think of that? Or Adam Silver think of that? It's a team effort.
It is absolutely a team effort, but we have been in discussions with them for a little while, and again, our approach with all these partners is really starting with what is it that you're trying to solve? What business problem can we help you solve? And that's how we came to this mutual conclusion.
So just for kicks, you do a $24 billion 9-year television deal, ABC, ESPN, Turner, and the like. The leverage you had was great, but to build the brand with television, especially in this world of vertical integration, that's not easy to do.
Correct. And the nice thing about this is they are extensions of partnerships that we've had for a long time. Our partnership with Turner is one of the longest in the industry between a sports property and a TV network. And so we've been partners for many, many years with both ABC, ESPN, and TNT. And this really speaks to the value of live sports content.
Do you like the jersey patches?
I love the jersey patches. I think it's a great opportunity for global brands to get even more deeply involved with the NBA. I think that the thing that's going to be interesting about this and how it's going to benefit the fans is that there's going to be more of an investment from these companies who are investing in these jersey patches to promote the NBA, to promote the brand, to create experiences for consumers.
You sold it on the basis of new found revenue as opposed to cannibalizing existing revenue sources, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a new piece of inventory. We think this is going to bring new entrants into the category of sports marketing and specifically the NBA.
Yeah. And the other issue, though, the huge elephant in the room, player salaries are up to $6 billion. It was 57%. It's now 51%. We've got an opt-out opportunity a year and a half from now. Why would anybody want to opt out of this agreement?
It's a great question. I mean, we're focused on this partnership. We're focused on growing revenue and growing the pie. And so we're having great conversations with Michelle Roberts, the executive director in the National Basketball Players Association. And we're hopeful that it won't come to that.
In this age of political instability, let alone instability, are the substantive issues winning out? It sounds like the rhetoric is toned down a little bit from a year ago.
Oh, very much so. Again, business is great. We have a terrific partnership with the Players Association, and so there are going to